Living from down, cause them life not easy boat. Even Bantan said it's not an easy go. Operation occupy the motherland, calling all soldiers to kind each other along. From creation, he writing a job plan, but chronics can't do it alone. So I'm recruiting soldiers coming from near and far by choose. Executing Selassie I works and the Rastafari truth. And them say here comes trouble, here comes the danger, sent by the Savior.
So I've got a few comments on my video here. I wanted to give a good response because the person who's saying these things, I know, is a real person, is not a troll, is able to own their own opinion and present it, and use their, logic, which sometimes is reasonable, to present their case. Now this guy, 66 Rabid Monkey, is replying to a video that I talked a little bit about trolls, where, there's probably millions of people out there that are just bored and want to incite emotions for some sort of an attention, scheme so that they're not bored. I would call these people trolls, and I would say most of them, if not all of them, do not use their own identity. They come to places like YouTube and social media websites and use an anonymous account and don't own anything they say. And they try to get a rise out of somebody without any accountability. Now, those people have no reputation, no credibility, and usually aren't worth even addressing. The only reason why I address one or two of these is that one of them is in my family, or, is in a distant family that we know personally, and who has, a long record of false accusations, being arrested for these things, harassment, phone harassment, threats, phone threats, anonymous behavior that they were arrested for, and then they come to my channels and they do this thing, for decades, at least over a decade, they've done these type of things. So I have addressed it, but this person came to this video that I made about how to get the most out of YouTube discussions and avoiding trolls. And he said, this is, like I said, somebody that I know who did a First Amendment audit in Pocatello, and I supported his plight to fight this. He ended up conceding and giving in and not fighting it fully, even though he had I think he had a public pretender and he was local. He had every reason to fight it, but ended up taking a plea deal and getting charged with a misdemeanor nonetheless. I think it was disorderly conduct. But I supported him when he was doing his First Amendment audit at the FBI and, in his plight to fight the arrest and whatnot. But him and I disagree on creation, science, atheism, and things like that. And I've called him intellectually dishonest, or anybody in his purview that, believes that they know the difference, they know that there is no God. They have faith in this. They absolutely deny and reject any notion that there is a God, even though there's evidence for a God. But they have this religious dogma that they say, oh, there's no God. And they use these, very dogmatic and even evangelistic ways to espouse their point. To read this whole thing would take 10 minutes of the video. You're welcome to read it. Here it is captured on my screenshot. And I just wanted to respond here to one thing. He says, I do not hide from the truth. I am not intellectually dishonest, and I wholeheartedly welcome proven methods for discovering truth. Call me a troll if you wish. If that's what I am to you, then please at least refer to me as a troll who understands and respects the hard work that scientists actually do. Like I said, I don't consider him a troll because he owns his opinion. He has used his face on videos, his name. He's not hiding from anything. I agree. But for him to say, for example, this is one thing that I wanted to respond to because I think it's a good point. He says, let's see, science is careful to not make broad assumptions. Well, I mean, the theory, the description of evolution is a very broad assumption. When people say that 99.99999 or whatever they're going to say, I think it's less, but anyway, they say all these scientists believe in evolution. Well, evolution has multiple different definitions. There's microevolution, there's macroevolution, there's abiogenesis, and then there's just the basic dictionary description of evolution that things change with time. Every creationist, every theologist, every theist that I know believe things change with time, adaptation, whatever. They don't believe in abiogenesis for the most part. They don't believe in macroevolution. They may believe a little bit in microevolution, but to say that, 167% of scientists believe that, whatever, it's nonsense, because that term doesn't have a singular meaning. It has multiple dual meanings, so more than dual meanings. It has, at least 4 definitions that I can think of. And they're not all the same. Microevolution and macroevolution are completely different. Microevolution, macroevolution, and the basic definition of the dictionary of evolution is different from abiogenesis. Yet evolutionists will tie all these together and say, 99.999% of scientists believe in evolution. Okay, well, they don't define what evolution these people believe in and what people accept. And coincidentally, and I think interestingly, only less than 4% of the population is atheist. So if everybody, especially scientists, but if everybody was seeing this science that scientists were presenting, that they claim is, an all-inclusive evolution theory, that why wouldn't more people be atheist in our society? Only less than 4% of people claim to be atheist in this society. So it doesn't make sense to me that if these theories are proven and widely accepted, that more people aren't atheists. Because it would make most people atheists to think that life is not special, that life is random, that life has no intelligence, that life, it was created out of, chaos and randomness and whatever, that there's no designer. That would, to me, if evolution was true, that's what that would say, that everything was random. It was by half chance. It wasn't, intelligent motivation. And not many people buy that. So what he's saying here is, have you not actually realized that human knowledge grows and expands? It is not a static state of mind. A book written over 2,000 years ago is not infallible. You are acting ridiculous if the best version of your reality can surmise. During the greatest enlightened age of human time as yet produced, you choose to ignore the most successful tools of mankind conceptualized. So, no, I've used science in many of my videos, and you can look at them. I've got a playlist that is dedicated to it, that talks about these things. I have rebroadcast RN Raw. So I'm cruising around YouTube looking for some sound. Sorry about that video interruption there. But no, I've got Honest Challenge of Darwinian Evolution. I've got this Aaron Raw versus what's his name? John Mark Reynolds, I believe, creation scientist. I've got macro-Darwinian thinking applied to social relationships, abiogenesis, can it be disproven using many scientists? I believe I've got about 12 in that video. Nobel Prize winners, professors of Rice University, professors of physics, mathematics, material science, things like that in there. So, I mean, I've been using scientific methods and scientists who actually work in the fields here about this particular subject. So, no, I'm not saying that, just because I believe in theism, I believe in a creator, that all science is nonsense. No, I'm challenging the science. I believe that the people that are saying, that 99.9999999.999, whatever, they go on and on, all these numbers, all these statistics about how many people believe in evolution. I just believe they're interpreting that data wrong. I think they're using evolution as a very broad term, and they're not narrowing it down. And, they're not saying, okay, well, they believe in this evolution, they believe in macroevolution, they believe in microevolution, or they believe in abiogenesis. Because when you look at those numbers, the amount of people in science that have a consensus on these issues are much smaller in numbers, 10%, 20% of these, macroevolution or abiogenesis. You're not going to find, anywhere close to the numbers they're representing of people who represent evolution or believe in evolution in science that believe in all 4 categories or all 4 definitions of evolution. So I think they're just being very broad with their language, like John Mark Reynolds says to Aaron Ra, that he tried to define definitions with Aaron Ra because Aaron Ra was using loose and imprecise definitions in his language and trying to evangelize him on this theory of evolution. So no, I first of all, I don't even consider myself involved in a religion. I haven't subscribed to any membership of any church since I left the Mormon church. And when I was in the Mormon church, much like Aaron Ra, I was baptized into it at the age of 8. I didn't even believe. I'd never read the Book of Mormon. I had never read the Bible. It was an expectation of my family that I do this. You know, I had long hair. My parents cut it down. They made me look like a proper Mormon boy, and they baptized me. I never believed in it. And after I left the Mormon church at a young age, I was never involved in it, but I left, you know, officially. I had my name removed from the records of the Mormon church when I was 19 years old. I never rejoined any church. And so when I've made commentary on my beliefs, like you can see this one from 7 years ago, different faiths, same God. I take from all these ancient knowledges and all these ancient writings, as well as new and modern writings. You know, I've studied a lot of the scientific perspectives and looked into, you know, the thousands and thousands of scientists who do believe in creation, who in modern science, who have made major contributions, won Nobel Prizes for their contributions, believe in creation. And so I've researched them, and I've researched the opposite, which is why I've, you know, posted for my audience links to this Aaron Ra, because he has an opposite opinion. I think his main motivation is not to prove evolution and not to, you know, contribute to science. I believe him and many like him's main purpose and motivation is simply to disprove creationism. And so that's, you know, my point in responding to them is, you know, you're using the same logical fallacies and other fallacies to evangelize people, you know. And there's a great video about Aaron Ra. I think it was The Religious Atheist by Skeptor, I believe is the name of the video. And oh yeah, here it is right here. And he points out, you know, a dozen, in just, you know, a short, you know, clip, just, you know, a couple minutes of one of Aaron Ra's speeches about feminism, how Aaron Ra uses, you know, appeal to authority and logical fallacies and all these, you know, almost a dozen fallacies to advocate for this social justice movement of feminism, and doesn't even use the correct definitions. You know, Aaron Ra lies and says there's only one definition for feminism. There's no others. There's only one. Ignores the encyclopedia and ignores other definitions from dictionaries. It ignores social sciences and studies on this. That no, there isn't just one definition for feminism. But Aaron Ra lies and says there is, to make a point about a social justice movement that he's, you know, involved in. And he claims himself to be a feminist, but he doesn't specify what kind. Is he a second-wave feminist, third-wave feminist, or is he a first-wave feminist? And honestly, the first-wave feminists were great, and they did a lot of good things for the women's movement, for human rights, and so on and so forth. Second-wave feminists really hate men. Third-wave feminists want to get rid of men, it seems like. I mean, it's not an equal rights thing, and that's what he says that it is. So this video right here by Skeptor is something people should go and take a look at. Now, as far as these trolls, and like I was talking about with what was his name? Oh, gosh. Oh, geez, I'm going to find it here. Okay, yeah, 66 Rabid Monkey. His name's Sean Johnson, and like I said, I've made videos in support of him doing his First Amendment audits in the past. But, you know, as far as owning your opinion, hey, if you own your opinion, even if you're dead wrong, even if you make the worst logical fallacies, mistakes that there could possibly be made in analyzing a subject, doesn't mean you're a troll. You may be dogmatic, you may be evangelistic, you may be using the same fallacies that the religious people use that you don't like. It may make you a hypocrite, but I wouldn't say you're a troll. At least you own your own opinion. And there's other, you know, skeptics out there, like this one that commented on Expelled, the Ben Stein movie Expelled, No Intelligence Allowed, who says the same thing I'm saying.
It's an appeal to authority and majority, and may even be a lie. In any case, a scientist isn't a scientist unless he's willing to risk all and put his hypothesis to the test. He fails the very definition of science if he doesn't.
And that's the truth. If you won't put your reputation on the line, if you won't risk anything by making a comment on a topic, if all you do is you go around trolling using an anonymous identity and, you know, making insulting remarks to people that make no progress in a conversation, it's just a way to insult people, and you won't even own that, like you won't even use your real identity, I don't have time for that. whether it's scientifically, valid or, credible or whatever, or whether it's just, bad form, I think it's bad form. If people are so low down that they can't even own their own opinion, but they want to insult somebody anonymously, and they don't have the balls to own their own opinion, well, good luck with that, all right? Because I'm not going to make any time for that. That's just ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense to me. But I have made plenty of videos on this. I've given my opinion. I've owned it, for many years. This one was 6 years ago. The other one that I showed, different faith, same God, that was from 7 years ago. And I've had websites like BehindZionCurtain.com on the internet for like almost 20 years. So you can look at my opinions. They're out there. I've got plenty of ownership. I own every opinion that I've ever made. And so, no, I don't just rely on one book, just like I don't rely on just one scientist. I don't rely on the book that I've read, such as the Bible or even the Origins of Species, to be 100% accurate. I believe men are fallible, and men wrote these books, whether it's the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, Origins and Species, or any of these others. I don't expect 100% perfection. So if men have made mistakes, like, for example, with the flood, Noah's flood, and they've said it was a worldwide thing. Noah reports, hey, there was a worldwide flood, God wants me to save all these animals, whatever. He wants me to build a boat. I don't necessarily need to think that it was global in the perspective that we have today of global. It might have been global in the perspective they had at that time. Noah may have thought global, meaning as much as they have solved the world to that point, and I think their whole world at that point got flooded. It'd be like me being on Puerto Rico, the island of Puerto Rico recently, and Hurricane Maria came in and destroyed the entire island. And if I hadn't ventured out from that island and all I knew was Puerto Rico, I would say the whole world was practically destroyed. The whole world as I knew it was practically destroyed, I mean, that's the claim I would make if I didn't know any better, if I hadn't gone out of Puerto Rico to see other places. So that's one thing that I disagree with, is that, these people that wrote the Bible have to have a perfect science involved in everything they wrote. When science today gets disproven all the time, many scientific theories, hundreds of them have been disproven. That's even with modern knowledge and modern tools and, millennia and millennia, multiple millennia of advances, and science still gets it wrong all the time. So I'm not going to say that the Bible authors have to be perfect when science doesn't have to be perfect. So that's my thought on it.
What is it about quantum theory that so troubled Einstein that he would spend nearly a quarter of his life trying to find a replacement for it? The answer is perhaps a bit simpler than we might suspect. Einstein was a realist and believed in an objective universe that exists outside of our subjective observations of it. What so bothered Einstein about quantum theory, even though he contributed to it with his photoelectric effect and Brownian motion papers and appreciated its many strengths, was that it was inherently probabilistic, and that at its philosophic and methodological core was an uncertainty principle which pointed to the variability of human measurement. As John Wheeler, the eminent physicist at Cornell and Princeton and the University of Texas at Austin, later stated, "There is no phenomena unless it is an observed phenomena." This was intolerable to Einstein, since, as he suggested to his eventual biographer and physics colleague, Abraham Pace, the moon really does exist, even when I don't look at it. Einstein's objections to quantum theory took two major turns. First, almost from the outset, Einstein attempted to show how the new quantum mechanics, as defined by Heisenberg and Bohr, was mistaken. Later, Einstein accepted to some measure the correctness of quantum theory, but tried to point out how it was an incomplete theory, and most likely a bridge theory to something much more comprehensive and complete. One of the sticking points for Einstein was the breakdown of individual causality inherent in quantum theory, where a measuring device a priori determines the outcome of a quantum state. As the science magazine Seed explains it, Schrödinger and Heisenberg independently uncovered dual descriptions of particles and atoms. Later, the theories proved equivalent. Then, in 1926, Max Born discovered why no one had found a physical interpretation for Schrödinger's wave function. They are not physical waves at all. Rather, the wave function includes all the possible states of a system. Superposition is one of the defining qualities of quantum mechanics and implies that individual events cannot be predicted. Only the probability of an experimental outcome can be derived. The fact that quantum theory involves a connection between a measuring device and how we can ascertain reality was, for Einstein, fundamentally problematic. In a now famous letter to Max Born dated March 3, 1947, Einstein outlines why. I cannot make a case for my attitude in physics, which you would consider at all reasonable. I admit, of course, that there is a considerable amount of validity in the statistical approach which you were the first to recognize clearly as necessary given the framework of the existing formalism. I cannot seriously believe in it because the theory cannot be reconciled with the idea that physics should represent a reality in time and space free from spooky actions at a distance.